The great hall of the Galactic Empire was always a place of power, pride, and fear, but on this morning it felt different. A strange tension floated in the air, as if something unseen was moving through the walls. Guards stood tall with shining silver armor, nobles gathered in long robes, and warriors waited with their weapons tied across their backs. Today was Judgment Day, the single day of the year when the Empress listened to requests from her people. Many arrived with great problems. Many came with greedy demands, but all came with hope. The hall doors were tall and heavy, made of old stone that had not moved in years. So when they slowly opened with a deep echo, every head in the room turned at once. They expected a hero, a famous general, maybe even a royal messenger, but instead, they saw a simple young mother standing in the doorway. She was small, thin, and covered in dust from long travel. Her clothes were worn, her hair tied back with a broken string. She did not look strong or important. She held something in her arms, wrapped in a dark blue blanket, and her hands trembled lightly. People began whispering at once, "Why is she here? She looks poor. She will waste the Empress's time. No one comes here with a child, how shameful." The young mother heard them. But she did not slow down. Her steps were weak but steady. She walked straight across the long hall, towards the place where the Empress sat on her high throne. As she passed the nobles, they moved back as if her presence was dirty. Some laughed quietly, some smirked. Some exchanged rude looks, but she kept walking. She did not care what they thought. Her heart was full of fear. But her love for the small creature in her arms was stronger. She reached the center of the hall, and for a moment she stood still. Her breathing was heavy, her shoulders shook. But she opened the blanket anyway. A wave of gasps moved across the room like a cold wind. Inside the blanket lay a small dragon child. His tiny body was covered in soft silver scales, shining like moonlight under the hall lamps. But his wings did not move, his legs did not move. His tail lay limp on her arm. The child was completely paralyzed from the neck down. He blinked slowly with golden eyes full of sadness, confusion, and pain. He looked like he wanted to speak, but no sound came from his mouth. The mocking grew louder. A paralyzed dragon? What a useless creature. Why bring a broken child here? Is she begging for pity? One noble even laughed loudly. Dragons should fly, not lie like stones. The mother's eyes filled with tears, but she did not speak. She hugged her child closer and lifted her head to look at the throne. The Empress sat tall and calm, her long white cloak flowing around the steps like water. Her eyes were bright blue, sharp and soft at the same time. She watched the young mother quietly. While everyone else laughed, the Empress did not move. Not even her breath changed. Finally, she raised one hand. The hall became silent instantly. Not one whisper remained. The mother bowed deeply, her forehead touching the cold floor. "Your Majesty," she said with a trembling voice, "please, I beg you, help my son." Her voice echoed softly in the hall. She looked up with wet eyes and continued, "He cannot move, Your Majesty. He has been like this for many months. I have tried everything, every healer, every medicine, but nothing worked." Some people rolled their eyes. Others shook their heads, but the Empress's expression did not change. She stood from her throne. This shocked everyone, because the Empress rarely left her seat for anyone. The hall fell into a deeper silence as she slowly walked down the steps. Her silver boots made soft sounds on the stone floor. The air around her felt warm, almost glowing. The young mother kept her head low. She did not dare look up. The Empress stopped in front of her and spoke with a calm, gentle voice. "Raise your head," she said. The mother lifted her face, tears still falling. The Empress looked at the dragon child with deep interest. Not fear, not disgust, interest. Then something unbelievable happened. The Empress smiled, a slow, warm, knowing smile. a smile so rare that many in the hall had never seen it before. The nobles stiffened in shock. The warriors exchanged confused looks. Why was the Empress smiling at a broken dragon child? She reached out and lightly touched the boy's forehead. The child blinked, his eyes glowing a little brighter. And the Empress whispered, "Bring the child closer." Those 4 words sent a wave of confusion through the entire hall. Why did she want the boy? What did she see in him? Why did she smile? But the Empress already knew something no one else did. Something ancient, something powerful, something that connected her to this small, paralyzed dragon boy, and that secret was about to change everything. The great hall was still silent when the Empress spoke. Her voice was soft, but it carried power strong enough to make every warrior stand straighter. "Bring the child closer," she repeated. The young mother held her breath. Her heart beat so fast it hurt. She stepped forward carefully. Afraid she might drop her son or anger the Empress, the dragon boy blinked slowly, his golden eyes reflecting the bright lights above them. When the mother reached the last step, she paused. The Empress climbed down the final stair herself. And for the first time, she stood only an arm's length away. Everyone watched in complete disbelief. The Empress never came this close to anyone except commanders or ancient allies. But now she stood in front of a simple woman and a paralyzed child. The Empress lifted her hand, and the child's forehead glowed faintly under her touch. A thin line of silver light appeared under his scales. Spreading like cracks on glass, gasps filled the hall again. Louder this time. "What is that? Is she harming him? Why is his skin glowing?" But the Empress ignored every voice. Her eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in deep concentration. Something was hidden inside the boy, something she had not seen in centuries. A memory whispered at the edge of her mind. A voice from long ago, a promise she had never broken. The Empress looked at the mother. "What happened to him?" she asked. Her voice was calm but heavy, like someone who already knew part of the answer. The mother swallowed and held her child tighter. "It happened 5 months ago," she began in a shaky voice. "There was a fire, a terrible fire, and an explosion in the mountains." Her hands trembled at the memory. A dark group came. Hunters. They wanted him. They said dragons like him, rare dragons, must be taken. A murmur ran through the hall. Hunters were feared across many worlds. Creatures and criminals who collected powerful beings for money, power, or cruel experiments, the mother continued, her voice cracking. "I tried to run, but they caught us. They tried to put chains on him. He screamed. He tried to fly, but they struck him with something that froze his body." Her tears finally fell. "I fought them, Your Majesty. I fought with everything I had. And I escaped. But my son, he never moved again after that day." The Empress listened quietly. No emotion crossed her face. But inside her heart, a storm began to rise. Hunters using paralysis magic, rare dragons. A mother running for months across dangerous lands. And a child who should not even exist, not in this form, not in this state, not in this timeline. Suddenly the silver glow under the dragon boy's skin pulsed. A low hum filled the air, like the sound of old energy awakening after sleeping for centuries. Warriors stepped back with fear. The boy's wings twitched just once as small. Weak movement, but enough to shock everyone. The mother gasped. "He moved. He moved," she whispered, choking on tears. But the Empress was not surprised. She watched the glow with calm eyes. She understood. The boy's magic was awakening because of her presence. She turned her head slightly and spoke to her guards. "Silence this hall completely," she ordered. Instantly the doors closed, sealing the room with thick stone. No one entered, no one left. They all knew something great was about to happen. The Empress then looked down at the dragon boy again. Her fingers brushed a small scale on his cheek. It shimmered with silver energy, unlike normal dragon scales. She whispered a sentence so soft only the mother heard it. "He is not just a dragon child," the Empress said. "He carries ancient blood." The mother's eyes widened. She had heard old stories. Legends told near dying fires. Tales about dragons with silver blood who ruled mountains before the empire existed. But those were stories, nothing more, or so she believed. The Empress lifted the child's wing gently. Symbols were carved into his skin markings so old that even the greatest scholars could not read them. But the Empress could, because she was there when they were written long ago. She witnessed the ancient oath. She made the ancient promise. She straightened slowly and turned toward the hall. Her voice echoing strong and clear. "This child," she said, "was not paralyzed by nature or injury. He was sealed." A roar of whispers exploded instantly. "Sealed? Like magic?" "No creature can seal dragon power. Only one being could. An Empress of the eternal line, a bloodline older than the Empire. A bloodline that once walked the mountains with dragon kings." The Empress raised her hand again. Silence fell like a heavy blanket. She looked at the mother, and her voice became gentle. "Your son is more important than you know," she said. "He carries power that was meant to sleep until the right moment. And that moment might be now." The dragon boy's golden eyes blinked again. This time brighter, warmer, as if he understood every word. The Empress knelt something she had never done in front of anyone in living memory. She placed her hand on the boy's heart. And the silver glow expanded through his whole body. Everyone in the hall held their breath. Some felt fear, others felt hope, but no one could look away. Because the Empress was unlocking something ancient, something powerful, something forgotten by time itself. And the secret between dragons and empresses was finally waking up. One heartbeat at a time, the silver glow around the dragon boy slowly faded, leaving the hall in a heavy silence. The Empress stood again, her expression calm, but her eyes carried the weight of old memories. The mother held her son close, unsure whether she should speak or stay silent. She had never imagined standing this near to the Empress, and she felt her knees shaking in fear and hope at the same time. The nobles and warriors around the hall whispered nervously. They still did not understand why the Empress cared so much about a paralyzed dragon child. But the Empress's attention stayed only on the mother. "Tell me your name," the Empress said. Her voice was not harsh, but it carried command. The mother took a deep breath and lifted her eyes. "My name is Lissa," she said softly. Her voice wavered, but she tried to stay strong. "I am from the mountain village of Karth." Some people in the hall exchanged looks. Karth was not just any village, it was a place known for a strong warrior bloodline that vanished many years ago. The Empress nodded slowly, recognizing the name. "Your eyes show fear, but your steps show strength," she said. "You walked through the entire hall while they mocked you. And you did not stop once." Lissa lowered her head, tears gathering again. "I only walked because I had to save him," she whispered. "My son is everything I have left." The Empress studied her carefully. There was no crown on Lissa's head. No marks of royalty, no armor, nothing special on her clothes. But her voice carried something rare courage rising from deep wounds. "Lissa," the Empress said quietly, "your son is not the only one with a hidden story." Lissa froze. She did not understand what the Empress meant, but she felt a weight inside her heart begin to shake loose. The Empress gestured for her to continue explaining. "Tell us what happened before the hunters attacked," she said. Lissa's fingers tightened around her son. She closed her eyes for a moment, gathering strength. And then she finally spoke the truth she had carried alone for years. "Before the attack," she said, "my clan was alive." The hall reacted instantly. Gasps, shocked whispers, disbelieving looks. Everyone knew the mountain clan of Karth was wiped out a long time ago. Destroyed by enemies, betrayal, and war. No survivors were ever found. but the Empress raised her hand. And the hall fell silent again. She nodded for Lisa to continue. "My clan was hunted," Lisa whispered, her voice trembling with old pain. "We were protectors of the Silver Peaks, the guardians of dragon eggs, the keepers of old magic." Her eyes filled with tears. "But someone betrayed us. Someone from inside." A chill ran through the room. Betrayal within a warrior clan was one of the darkest sins. Lisa bit her lip, trying not to cry. "Our gates opened from the inside. Our defenses broke in minutes. And the hunters rushed in." She swallowed hard, unable to stop her shaking. "My parents fought. My sisters fought. Everyone fought. But the betrayal was too deep, and we fell." The hall was silent now. No one laughed at her anymore. Even the rude nobles who mocked her earlier were staring with wide eyes. "I ran with my son," Lisa continued. "He was only a small baby then. His wings were soft. His voice was tiny. He cried through the smoke." She hugged her son tightly, as if protecting him from memories. "I hid in the tunnels beneath the mountains. For months we survived quietly, moving from place to place, never staying long." The Empress listened without blinking. She had heard many painful stories in her life. But Lisa's voice held something different. It held truth, and a strength Lisa herself did not realize she carried. "When he grew a little older," Lisa whispered, "I started to notice strange marks on his skin, symbols glowing under his scales. I didn't understand why." She shook her head. "I thought it was some strange sickness. I thought he was cursed. I was so afraid." The Empress stepped closer. "He was not cursed," she said gently. "He was chosen." Lisa's breath caught. "Chosen? For what?" she asked, confused. The Empress's eyes softened. "Chosen by ancient dragon bloodline," she said. "Chosen to hold magic that was too powerful to wake when he was so little. So it was sealed inside him." Lisa stared at her son in shock. She had always known he was special, but she never imagined this. The Empress continued. "And because he carried that power, the hunters wanted him. Your clan did not fall just because of betrayal. They fell because someone wanted the boy." Lisa felt her knees weaken. All these years she blamed herself, blamed her weakness, blamed her bad luck. But the truth was bigger, older, darker. Her son was never a mistake, never a burden, never broken. He was the reason her enemies attacked. He was the reason she survived. And he was the reason she was standing before the Empress now. The Empress looked at her with deep respect. "You lived in hiding for years," she said. "You raised a dragon child alone while enemies hunted you. You walked across dangerous lands with no food, no shelter, and no protection. You reached this hall tired, bruised, and frightened, but you did not fall." Lisa finally broke down. She cried openly, tears falling onto her son's silver scales. The hall did not laugh now. They watched in silence. Some even bowed their heads out of respect. The Empress placed a hand on Lisa's shoulder. Her voice was soft but strong. "You are not a simple villager," she said. "You are the last survivor of a warrior clan, and your son is the last heir of an ancient dragon kingdom." Lisa looked up in disbelief. Her world had changed in one moment. Her past was no longer a shame. Her son was no longer a burden. Their suffering was not meaningless. The Empress stepped back and declared, "You and your child came here alone. But you will not leave alone." The hall buzzed with shock. Everyone stared as the Empress turned to the throne again. Because now the truth was clear. The mother was not weak. The child was not broken, and their story had only just begun. The hall felt different now, moments ago. People mocked the mother and her paralyzed son. Now every face watched with fear, respect, or shock as silver light still flickered under the dragon boy's scales. The truth had changed the entire room. The boy was not weak. He was not broken. He was a sealed heir, a child carrying ancient power older than the empire itself. The Empress stepped back from the mother and child, her eyes glowing softly in the dim light. She raised her hand and motioned toward her royal healer. "Bring the detection crystal," she commanded. A tall woman with glowing green gloves hurried forward, holding a bright clear crystal on a metal plate. The crystal was known across worlds. It never lied, it revealed the truth of any living soul. When placed near someone strong, it shone bright. When placed near someone cursed, it darkened. And when placed near ancient magic, it reacted in ways that frightened even the bravest warriors. The healer bowed and held the crystal near the dragon boy's chest. Lisa held her breath. The hall stayed silent. Every eye focused on the small child who still could not move. His body shook gently as if it were fighting something from inside. At first, the crystal stayed dim, then one small spark of light blinked inside it, then another, then 100. Then it exploded in bright white glow so powerful that the healer dropped it in shock. The crystal hit the floor and cracked, something that had never happened before. Gasps echoed everywhere. The warriors stepped back. Even the nobles covered their eyes from the bright flash. Only the Empress remained perfectly calm. A small smile touched her lips. "It is as I thought," she said quietly. Lisa could barely breathe. "Your Majesty, what does this mean?" She whispered, afraid of the answer. The Empress turned to her. "It means," she said slowly, "your son's power was never lost. It was sleeping." Lisa felt her heart shake. Sleeping. Not dead, not broken. Sleeping. The dragon boy's tiny fingers twitched. His wings moved just a little, barely a breath of motion. But for Lisa, it felt like the stars themselves had shifted. "He moved again," she whispered, tears filling her eyes. She touched his cheek gently. "Sweetheart, can you hear me?" The boy blinked, and a tiny spark of gold flashed in his eyes. It was the first real response he had shown in months. Around the hall, whispers rose again. But this time with fear and awe mixed together. Is his power awakening? A dragon child with sealed magic. This is dangerous. What if he loses control? What if the Empress cannot handle it? But the Empress raised her hand for silence. She looked at the dragon boy with deep understanding. Her voice was soft and steady. "It is all right, little one. You may let it out." The air around the boy shimmered. A soft humming sound filled the hall, like the sound of wings about to spread. Like a mountain breathing after a long sleep. Then the light under his scales grew brighter, spreading across his chest, his arms, his wings. Symbols began glowing on his neck, old symbols, dragon symbols, shining like moonlight. Warriors stepped back again, gripping their weapons. Some nobles moved behind pillars, unsure whether to hide or watch, but Lisa stood still, holding her child protectively, and the Empress did not move at all. Her calmness made the hall feel safe, even as ancient power filled the air. The boy's chest rose higher. His wings trembled harder. Then a faint sound slipped from his mouth. A soft, weak cry, but filled with life. Lisa gasped. "That's his voice. I haven't heard him make a sound since the attack." Tears rolled down her cheeks. She tried to hold him gently, afraid she might hurt him. But the Empress placed a reassuring hand on her arm. "He is waking," she whispered. "Let him." Suddenly, the light grew brighter. A wave of warm energy burst out from the child, gentle but powerful. It washed over the hall. Dust lifted from the floor. Banners on the walls fluttered as if touched by wind. The metal armor on the guards hummed softly, and then the impossible happened. The dragon boy lifted one finger, just one. But it broke every bit of fear in Lisa's heart. She cried louder, holding him close but careful. "You're moving. You're moving," she whispered again and again. The Empress watched with a soft smile. She remembered a dragon king with the same golden eyes. A dragon who once saved her life when she was young. A dragon who made her promise something she never forgot. Now his heir lay before her, trying to wake after being sealed. Hunted and nearly destroyed, but the awakening was not smooth. Suddenly the boy's body jerked, his wings shot open halfway. The symbols on his neck burned bright white. The hall shook with a low rumble. Lisa panicked. "Your Majesty, he's hurting." "No," the Empress said firmly. "He is fighting the seal." The child's breathing grew fast. His chest glowed brighter and brighter. The symbols tightened like chains. Resisting him, he whimpered in pain. Lisa cried out. "Stop it, please, he's just a child." But the Empress touched her shoulder, her voice calm and steady like a shield. "This is the only way. He must awaken his power before I break the seal." The hall shook again. The boy's wings snapped open a little more. His tail twitched for the first time. A small spark of silver fire escaped his lips. The nobles screamed. Guards pulled shields up. But the Empress lifted her hand, and everything stilled. The fire died before it touched the ground. The Empress leaned closer and whispered to the boy, "Awaken, little heir. The world has waited for you long enough, and for the first time in months." The dragon boy moved his head slightly, turning it toward the Empress. A spark of recognition shone in his eyes, as if he knew her. As if he remembered something older than language. Older than the Empire, older than all of them. The awakening had begun, and nothing in the galaxy would ever be the same again. The dragon boy's weak movements filled the hall with shock and fear. People who once laughed at him now watched with wide eyes. Standing frozen like statues, the air around the child shimmered with warm energy. Soft like morning sunlight, yet heavy like a deep storm waiting to break. Lisa held her son tightly, her arms trembling as she felt his tiny body fight against something invisible inside him. The Empress stepped closer, her long white cloak flowing behind her like a quiet river. Her eyes glowed with an ancient light, a light no human or alien in the hall had seen before. She placed her hand over the child's small heart, and the hall grew silent enough to hear every breath, every heartbeat, every whisper of magic in the air. "Your son is fighting the seal," the Empress said softly. "He is strong. Stronger than most grown dragons," Lisa's voice cracked. "But he is in pain. Please help him, Your Majesty, please." The Empress nodded slowly. "Yes," she whispered. "I will help him." She lifted her hand, and a soft silver circle formed in the air, spinning gently like a tiny moon above her palm. Gasps echoed across the room. Some nobles stepped back in fear. Others grabbed the arms of nearby guards for support, because this was not normal magic. This was old Empress magic, magic used only by rulers who carried the blood of the eternal line. Magic connected to the oldest dragons, magic that could break seals placed long before the Empire was born. The Empress closed her eyes. A slow breath left her lips. Her fingers glowed bright silver. Lisa held her son closer. The boy's body shook again, his wings twitching in weak spasms. The symbols on his neck burned brighter, tightening around him like chains made of fire. He whimpered softly, a sound full of fear, but also full of stubborn strength. The Empress opened her eyes again, and for the first time, the hall saw something almost frightening. The light in her eyes had changed, becoming older, deeper, like the light of someone who had lived many lives. She placed her glowing hand on the boy's forehead. The air exploded in a silent silver wave. It swept across the hall, shaking banners and rattling armor. But it did not harm a single person. It only carried truth. Truth waking from centuries of sleep. Lisa gasped as the symbols on her son's neck tightened even more. Burning bright white, the boy cried a small, broken sound. But he did not stop fighting. His wings stretched a little farther. His fingers curled slightly. His chest rose higher. The Empress whispered ancient words so old that only dragons remembered them. Words that once echoed in mountains where dragons flew between clouds. Words spoken during ancient treaties sealed with fire and blood. As she spoke, the chains of light around the boy began to crack. Small lines appeared across the glowing symbols. Cracks of silver that looked lightning under his scales. The hall watched in awe and terror. What is she doing? Is this safe? His power. It feels enormous. The Empress ignored them. Her voice grew stronger. Flowing with ancient force, she placed both hands on the boy, now one on his heart, one on his forehead. Her own energy began to dim slightly. Light drained from her fingertips as she poured her strength into the seal. Lisa trembled in fear. Your Majesty, you're hurting yourself. The Empress did not stop. Her face was calm, but her voice was firm. To break a seal like this, she said, I must give him a part of my own life force. Lisa's heart dropped. Life force? She whispered, horrified. Your Majesty, you cannot. But the Empress only smiled softly. My life is bound to the ancient dragons, she said. I owe them a promise. And this child is my chance to keep it. The hall fell into stunned silence. Even the warriors lowered their heads in respect. No ruler would give their life force so easily. No one except an empress tied to dragons by blood and history. The air grew brighter. The silver cracks across the boy's neck expanded. The chains of light began to break, one piece, then another, a third. Each time a chain broke, the boy's body shook violently. His wings stretched farther. His tail twitched stronger. He let out another weak cry, this one louder. Deeper, this one full of his true voice waking. And then, with a sound like thunder wrapped in soft wind, the final chain shattered. Light burst outward in a giant wave, blowing through the hall like a gentle storm. Robes fluttered, armor rattled, chandeliers swayed overhead. Lisa fell to her knees, sobbing hard. Her son's eyes glowed bright gold now. He blinked once slowly, then lifted his head a little higher. His wings opened halfway shaky, but alive. He tried to move his fingers, and they curled perfectly. The Empress stepped back, breathing heavily but smiling warmly. It is done, she whispered. The seal is broken. Lisa reached for her son, crying with joy and disbelief. My baby. You're moving. You're alive. The dragon boy looked around the room with clearer golden eyes. Strong, awake, aware, no longer trapped in a frozen body. No longer helpless, no longer silent. A small spark of silver fire escaped his lips, not dangerous. Just a newborn flame, his first flame since the attack. The Empress placed a gentle hand on Lisa's shoulder. He is still weak, she said, but he will grow. Quickly, he has awakened. And the hall, the same hall that laughed at him, stood in stunned silence. Because they all understood something now. The child was not just a dragon. He was the last heir of ancient kings, and today, he had taken his first step back toward his destiny. For a moment, the hall felt like it wasn't part of the world anymore. Light still floated in the air. Soft silver particles drifting around the dragon boy like tiny stars. Lisa held him carefully, crying quietly as he lifted his head again. His golden eyes were brighter, clearer, alive in a way they had not been for months. His wings twitched slowly, weak but controlled, and each movement made Lisa's heart tremble with joy. The Empress took a deep breath, steadying herself after giving away so much of her life force. Her face looked a little pale, but her eyes shone with satisfaction. She moved her hand gently across the boy's forehead, checking his energy. The seal is completely broken, she said softly. He will grow stronger with each hour. Lisa bowed deeply, tears dripping onto the ground. Thank you, Your Majesty. Thank you. I have no words. The Empress placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. You carried him across mountains and through danger, she said. You never gave up. And you reached me. You are the one who deserves praise. Lisa shook her head weakly. No. I only did what any mother would do. The Empress smiled. But there was something deeper in her smile, now something sad, something old, something knowing. The golden light from the child slowly faded to a warm glow under his skin. The hall was deadly silent as the Empress finally turned toward the crowd. Nobles, she said. Her voice steady and clear. Warriors, generals, advisors, the moment has come to speak the truth. Caught the wind. And then, he rose, just a few inches at first. Then higher, higher, Lisa gasped, her hands over her heart. The Empress smiled with tears in her eyes. The dragon boy let out a small, joyful cry, his first real sound of happiness, a sound so pure it echoed across the entire garden. Everyone watched in awe as he flew weakly but proudly through the air. Wings shaking but wings moving, he was flying, he was alive. He was awakening. His fall had been painful. His journey had been long. But his rise was only beginning, and from that moment on, no one ever dared mock him or his mother again. Because the whole empire knew the truth. The Dragon Prince had returned, and with him, hope returned too.